Ever get that feeling, when you decide to just try something new,
Yeah.
something that pushes you outside of your comfort zone? It could be a little, it could be a lot, but suddenly the world just feels completely different.
It's like a whole new perspective opens up, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
And today, that's precisely what we're going to be diving into. We've got some really fascinating insights for you, and they come from excerpts of this upcoming book. The author, she recounts her very first experiences living abroad.
And these are much more than just travel stories, right? What we're really interested in is how those initial experiences abroad actually acted as this kind of catalyst, fundamentally changing her perspective and ultimately leading her to make some pretty big life choices.
It's like a domino effect.
Yeah, exactly. So, we'll be taking a look at the years 2008 to 2011, specifically focusing on her time living in Portugal and Spain. And then we touch on the very beginnings of a new chapter for her in Belgium.
Okay. So for everyone listening, the goal here, our mission, is to really try to understand how those new experiences, especially the ones that come with a few unexpected hurdles, can become such powerful drivers of personal growth, and how they can really lead to a sort of fundamental rethinking of what you want your life to look like.
A reevaluation in a way.
Right.
Hmm.
Okay, let's unpack this. Starting with Portugal, back in 2008.
All right. So, right off the bat, what really stands out is this description the author gives about that initial shock of moving to Portugal. She had studied English for 15 years. I mean, that's quite an effort, right? But then, when faced with these everyday conversations, she just felt completely overwhelmed. She describes herself as like the silent girl in the corner for those first 2 weeks. Can you relate to that at all? Have you ever had a moment where you felt similarly unprepared, despite putting in the work beforehand?
Oh, I think so many of us can relate to that feeling. When there's that disconnect between theory and practice.
Yeah.
Like you can study something for years in a book, but then actually living it, experiencing it in real life, it's a whole different ballgame.
Absolutely.
And it's interesting how she coped with this initial challenge in Portugal. It was quite resourceful, actually. She started taking all these notes in class and then spending her evenings back in her room, translating them into Hungarian. What do you think that tells us about her approach to problem solving?
Well, I think it's really interesting, right? Because instead of kind of withdrawing or shutting down completely,
Yeah.
she finds this really active, even if solitary, way to engage with this new and kind of overwhelming environment.
Yeah.
It speaks to a real determination, I think, to bridge that gap, even if it means initially that intense individual effort.
It's that inner drive.
Yeah. And what's really fascinating is how that internal work then kind of paves the way for this really crucial turning point in her experience.
It does. And it really highlights, I think, the power of human connection. It's a simple thing, but so fundamental. A friendship with a classmate who offered her one-on-one English practice, that seems to have been the key that kind of unlocked her confidence.
Yeah, that personalized support.
Yeah. Have you ever experienced how just one supportive relationship can make such a huge difference in overcoming a fear or a challenge?
Oh, absolutely. That kind of tailored support can be incredibly impactful. And, once that fear of speaking started to fade, the author describes this incredible influx of new experiences and feelings: freedom, trust, adventure, challenge, self-development, experiencing the new, independence. It's like a complete 180 from her initial experience. When you hear that list, what resonates with you the most?
I mean, it's almost like those aha moments we all search for,
Exactly.
where things just click and you feel like you're finally truly living.
Living fully. Yeah.
And then this is where it gets really interesting, I think. As her time in Portugal was coming to an end, the fear she initially had, that fear of living abroad, it completely vanished.
Interesting.
But it was replaced by this, she describes it as this terrifying feeling of being tied down, of being bound to the life that her parents had always envisioned for her. That's quite a shifting perspective, isn't it?
It really speaks to how transformative those firsthand experiences can be.
Yeah.
Suddenly, those familiar expectations, those comforts even, can start to feel more like constraints holding you back.
Absolutely.
And I think it introduces this central theme that we see throughout the book, this whole idea of forging your own path.
Breaking free.
Yeah, exactly. And it seems like that taste of independence in Portugal really ignited this desire for self-determination. It really became a driving force for her.
It's like that first spark.
Yeah, that initial spark. And you see that reflected in her escape plan when she goes back home.
Right.
She very quickly determines that traditional university, it's just not the right path for her.
Yeah. She actually viewed it as a, quote, waste of time and money for what she wanted to achieve. And that's a pretty strong conviction, especially at a young age. What do you think fueled that perspective?
Well, I think it points to a really clear sense of her own priorities and perhaps a belief in the value of practical experience over traditional academic routes, at least for her specific goals. And it's interesting how this connects to her long history of working. She had started working when she was only 14, and she talks about this feeling of liberation that came with having her own paycheck, that financial independence.
Yeah, empowering.
Absolutely. That direct control over her finances seems to have been a huge motivator for her. Do you think that emphasis on financial independence, does that resonate with you at all?
Oh, absolutely.
Mhm.
I think having that autonomy early on can really shape your sense of what's possible.
Yeah.
And then comes this pivotal decision. In 2010, at the age of 20, she decides to become a flight attendant. And it seems like such a logical step, especially for someone who is craving adventure, new experiences, and independence. Can you see how those earlier experiences might have led her to that choice?
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's this beautiful alignment of her desires at that point in time. That yearning to leave home, the inherent travel that comes with being a flight attendant, and of course the opportunity to earn a living. It's like all these pieces just clicked into place for
It's
her.
like a perfect storm.
Yeah, and this decision then leads to her move to Belgium, which marks the start of her professional life. And this intentional pause, a gap year, if you will, on her university studies.
So Belgium represents this new, independent chapter for her. But the journey doesn't stop there, does it?
It never does.
No, it never does. After 10 months of flying out of Belgium, she decides to move to Tarragona in Spain. And this sounds like a serious lifestyle upgrade. A beautiful apartment with a swimming pool right by the beach.
Yeah.
What kind of impact do you think that change of scenery might have had on her?
Well, it definitely paints a picture of increased personal freedom, the chance for more leisure and enjoyment. But what I find particularly heartwarming is this reconnection she has with her best friend Julia. You know, Julia makes this spontaneous decision to move to Spain as well, especially after years of less frequent contact, before smartphones and all that were so common. It adds this wonderful element of chance, of serendipity to the story. Have you ever had a long-lost friendship rekindle in such an unexpected way?
It's always such a beautiful thing when that happens.
It is.
It really underscores how meaningful those deep connections can be, especially when life throws you those unexpected curveballs.
Yeah.
But just as Julia is about to move in with her, another very significant person enters the picture, Chris.
And the way they meet, it's actually quite interesting, isn't it? Connection is made through work colleagues who have opposite schedules. And then that very first meeting happens at a basketball game, facilitated by Chris's flatmate. It's so roundabout.
Yeah, it is.
And there's even this mention of them having this brief encounter a month earlier when she was initially looking for accommodation. And he had shown interest in her move even then. It suggests this subtle, almost a build-up to their meeting. Do you think there's something to those early, almost missed connections?
It definitely hints at a bit of destiny, wouldn't you say?
It does.
Not just a complete random encounter.
No, not at all. And then their relationship, it develops incredibly quickly. Just 2 weeks into dating, they embark on this massive 2,000-kilometer road trip through Spain and France. I mean, that's a pretty intense way to get to know someone.
Trial by fire, as they say.
It certainly is, and it highlights that shared passion for travel, as a really foundational element of their bond.
Right.
So as their relationship deepens, moving in together seems like the natural next step, especially when Julia relocates to Madrid.
So they have the space.
Exactly. But, it's not all smooth sailing, is it?
No.
The challenges of their opposite work schedules start to create some tension, some strain on the relationship. Even though their days off align perfectly, it's that classic feeling of your lives not quite syncing up in the way you'd hope.
Yeah. Being ships passing in the night.
Exactly. Have you ever experienced how these logistical challenges can impact a relationship?
Oh, absolutely. In so many ways, it can be a real struggle. And the author also mentions this discomfort she felt with Chris, witnessing how some of her colleagues treated her, due to her own low self-confidence at the time. And I think that vulnerability and maybe this desire to shield their relationship from those external pressures, it seems to play a part in their next big decision.
Which was a pretty significant one.
Yeah, a major decision. They decide to quit their jobs in Spain
Wow.
after just over 6 months, at least for the author. And it's interesting that neither of them actually saw flying as a long-term career path anyway.
So it seems like they were both ready for a change.
Yeah, ready for something new. What do you think that says about their individual ambitions, their goals?
Well, I think it speaks to this shared sense of not wanting to be tied down to something that didn't truly align with their long-term aspirations,
Yeah,
and a willingness to take a risk to pursue something more fulfilling.
absolutely.
And then comes Chris's suggestion to relocate, to move back to Belgium. And the author's reaction to this is quite visceral, isn't it?
Oh, it is. She says, and I quote, "Every fiber in my body was against moving back there." She had these negative experiences with the weather, a general lack of connection with the country itself. I mean, she had very clear reasons for her resistance.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever felt that strong of an aversion to a particular place?
It's interesting because it creates this real internal conflict for her, right?
Yeah.
Her head is saying no, absolutely not, but her heart seems to be pulling her in a completely different direction. And the reason she ultimately agrees to move to Belgium in 2011, she puts it as against her better judgment, is so telling. It was because she was madly in love. What do you think that reveals about the power of emotions, especially when it comes to making life choices?
I think it shows just how deeply our relationships can influence the paths that we take,
Yeah.
often in ways that we might not initially expect.
For sure.
And that's where this part of her story comes to a close, with a real cliffhanger. She mentions this twist waiting for her in Belgium. We'll definitely have to wait to hear more about that in the next part of the book, Hitchhiked.
So looking back at this part of her journey, we see her evolve from this hesitant newcomer in Portugal, navigating a new language, a new culture, to this more confident young woman in Spain, experiencing work, relationships, and ultimately making this unexpected move to Belgium driven by love.
What's amazing is how these seemingly small decisions can have such a ripple effect.
They really can.
And for all of you listening, I think there's some really powerful themes here to consider. The courage it takes to step into the unknown, the profound ways in which new environments can shape who we become, and how personal growth so often involves these unexpected twists and turns, and of course, overcoming our fears.
It really does make you wonder, what seemingly small decision have you made in your own life that ended up leading to a really significant change in direction?
That's something for all of us to think about.
It is. Those times when you stepped outside your comfort zone and how those experiences shaped your story in often unpredictable ways.
Absolutely. It's a journey of self-discovery, isn't it?
It really is.
Well, make sure you join us for our next deep dive, where we'll be continuing with the author's story and finally uncover what that promised twist in Belgium actually entails. It sounds like there are many more adventures ahead.
Definitely. Can't wait.
Stay tuned, everyone.